Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dr. Diaries. Here I'm going to be joined by my cousin Bilal Choudhery, who's currently a medical student at Midwestern University. Bilal has just begun his first year at medical school, so we're really happy to have him here today, and he's going to share a little bit of his wisdom and experience that he's gained so far. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming. All right, let's hop right into it. So, getting into medical school, how do you adjust to this crazy pace that you've never experienced before? It's like a lot of people give the analogy. It's like trying to drink water through a fire hydrant. How do you manage this all?
So, for that, I wish I had a simple answer, but there's not really a straightforward answer. But for me, as somebody who had a gap year or two in between, that was something that I was really worried about because it's something that I had heard, scrolling through Reddit, scrolling through SDN and all of these other places. I was like, oh, this is probably not the, this is something that's worrying me. Am I going to be able to keep up with the amount of information? And to be honest, you figure it out as you go along. I got in it and I was like, this is so much. But I think one of the main things that I learned myself was properly time managing. So like my first week to 2 weeks, I was kind of just trying to take care of everything all at the same time. And that was not working for me. But then after that, I was like, oh, if I, take care of this subject during this time, that's kind of what worked for my personality and my study style, was just properly time managing.
And with all that studying, you have tons of different classes all at the same time. And some schools have block schedules, some schools have different types of crazy schedules. What does your day to day look like when you wake up and when you go to sleep? Like, how do you determine I'm going to call it a night after studying this much?
So, at Midwestern, the way we have it, our day-to-day schedule looks different by the day and sometimes even by the week. So we will have, on average, we'll have at least 3 to 4 lectures per day. And in between that or around that, you can have dissection lab, you can have like OMM lab, there's like little biochem workshops or physiology workshops that you can have. And so it really varies day to day, but I would say the average day for me is waking up around 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, getting myself some coffee. I have my own espresso machine that I use at my apartment, and so just get that coffee. Head to campus. Typically, on a normal day, the lectures will be from like 9 to 12 o'clock, and then we'll have a lunch break from 12 to 1. And then on some days, we'll have another lecture after lunch from like 1 to 2. Or you might have like a lab after that. So like if you have dissection lab, it'll be from like 2 to 5. It's like a much longer type of thing. So I would say that the first 8 or 9 hours of the day are kind of just cruising along. You're going to class, you're taking notes in lecture, you have lunch, you go to lab. If you don't have lab, then you just went to the first couple of lectures, basically. And so that's kind of what I look at as the 9 to 5 portion of it, because that's the, just the cruising along, doing your thing. And then after that, what I typically do is I'll go and get myself something small to eat. And then I'll just try to plot myself in the library or like at a coffee shop somewhere nearby and just work until I feel that I've covered the material from that day, basically. So the mistakes that I feel like I made in my first couple of weeks is, like I said, I was not properly time managing. And so I feel like one of the things that I found that worked for me was like, okay, if I do the material that we covered today in class, then I'll feel okay moving on to the next day. Otherwise, then it just like, it kind of adds up before you even know it. And so, yeah, I would say on most days, I try to end studying by 9 to 10 o'clock. And there are some days that it will go later. If I have an exam that week, there are days that it'll probably go to like 11-ish. But I try to give myself a little bit of time to decompress in my apartment on my own too. Like, once I'm done studying, give myself some time to eat, give myself some time to, watch TikTok, do whatever just to reset before the next day.
Yeah, so, and also what you're saying is that just attending lectures isn't enough. And I feel like a lot of us, especially in undergrad, we just go to lecture, study for our exam like 2 or 3 days prior. So is that something that you can do in medical school or not at all?
So I feel like it depends on the person. I have a couple of friends who don't go to lecture at all because our lectures, at least at Midwestern, are recorded lectures. So they'll watch the recordings afterwards on 2 times speed, and that's enough for them. Me personally, I have to have at least 2 to 3 passes on material. So my first pass is going into lecture, listening to it, not at 2 times speed, listening to it at, the normal pace that the professor is doing it at. And then if there are things that I was like really lacking or like not understanding properly, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll go and rewatch this specific portion of the lecture. Or maybe I'll go and ask like, my friend who maybe understood this a little bit better and be like, hey, did you understand this concept? But definitely I think in terms of comparing it to undergrad, just going to lecture and then jumping into an exam without any prep or work afterwards might be doable for some people, but I feel like for the majority of people, it's probably not doable.
Yeah. And going into this now crazy schedule, is there anything that you've had to like leave in the past a little bit, or any of your hobbies that you've had to drop off?
I would definitely say I've had to cut down on them a little bit. I'm a very social person, and I have a big group of friends back here in Chandler and Gilbert area, and I used to hang out with them on almost like a daily basis. And I think the biggest transition for me was having to get used to not hanging out almost like every day or like having like a fun social type of event. For me, being the social butterfly type of person that I was, that was a little bit of an adjustment in the beginning, but it also helped moving to Glendale to, like a farther place away from everybody. Definitely helped in that. But I think one of the things I definitely had to give up was I don't want to say my full social life, a portion of my social life. You can still do things, you can still have fun. I still see that, that group of people once every week or 2 weeks, but you just can't have it to that like degree.
Yeah. And now with all the studying going on, is there like some specific method that just works, some golden method that works for you specifically? Is it some tool, some AI that works?
Sure. So I feel like I've tried a bunch of different things. I started out with ChatGPT, making practice problems with ChatGPT. And that was working out pretty well. So what I was doing basically was I would go through my lecture, I would upload my lectures into ChatGPT. Some schools are not okay with you doing that because they don't like their material being uploaded into like the AI software. My professors, at least one of my professors, gave the recommendation to do it, so I kind of ran with it. And so at one point I was putting, my lectures into ChatGPT, and what I was doing was when I was going over my second pass of material, if I had something that I was like completely stumbled on, I would ask ChatGPT, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, or like I have this question, like why is this not making sense? And that worked out pretty well. And then also you can have it make you practice problems. Just sometimes ChatGPT isn't the best in terms of like making clinical vignette style questions, like which is what you'll see on boards and what you'll see on like some of your exam questions. And then I recently, by a friend, was told about a different AI called Neural Consult. And it has worked wonders for me so far because Neural Consult is made for people in medicine, basically. And so you can upload your lectures, and when you upload your lectures, you get a bunch of different options of what you want to do. Once you upload your lecture, you can get a summary. So like what I do now is I'll upload the lecture, look at the summary, be like, okay, like read the summary as I go through the slides and be like, okay, this makes sense, because sometimes it'll summarize it better than are on the slides. And I'm like, oh, this is what this professor was trying to say. And then You can also do flashcards, like Anki closed deck or open close style flashcards, which is really good just for testing your comprehension. And then my favorite part about it is they have like a section where you can do questions, and it kind of gives like a little testing software almost. Like with ChatGPT, you know, you're just scrolling through and like you have to be like, okay, this is B, and then like you go and check your answer afterwards. With Neural Consult, it's like you're taking a test, you click B and you check your answer, and then it'll give you like a long explanation for each one, kind of like UWorld for those of you who are unfortunately studying for the MCAT. You know, it reminds me of UWorld in a way because you can learn a lot even from the explanation. So sometimes if I'm not feeling like reading through a lecture, I'll just go jump into questions and start answering questions, and I'll learn stuff from the lecture through those questions.
That's fire. You know, that's actually amazing. We have to check that
Yeah.
out. And with all this, it feels like a lot of pressure. I mean, you guys also have a bunch of exams as well. How important do you think is like having a good circle around you, a good support group?
I definitely think it's one of the most important things in my opinion. I am fortunate and lucky enough that I made a decent group of friends, a good circle, you know, during orientation and as school started, because there are going to be days that are rougher than others. There are going to be days that you do not want to study. You do not want, like, you have no motivation to work just because you're very overwhelmed with all the material. And I've only been in it a couple of months and I've already had several of those days. But when you have a group around you, like a support group, people, you trauma bond, you know. There's no better way to say it except that you guys are literally in the same boat together, going through it together. And some days you guys will all together be feeling the same way, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, why am I doing this? But having that group around you, you guys motivate each other, you guys keep each other going. And also, in terms of studying, having that group in terms of study groups is really, really important. I feel like for me, in terms of performance, having study groups is a really, really important thing.
And through all this, what keeps you grounded?
It's a great question. And for me, I think what keeps me grounded right now is one of the things is definitely my friend group that I have there, because they keep me sane when I might be going crazy. So when I might feel really, really like anxious because of all the material that we have, my friend group is one of the things that keeps me grounded. Another one of the things that keeps me grounded is my family. I'm fortunate enough to live in the same state, you know, that my family lives in, that I'm going into medical school in. So having them has definitely been a big thing that's kept me grounded as well. And then also the mentality of knowing that there will be breaks. Like, you know, I got through first quarter and there was a week break, and then, you know, right now on Thanksgiving break, knowing that also you need, another thing that'll keep you grounded is you don't need to have, I know that there's a lot of people that say once you get into med school is 24/7, you have nothing else, you have no social life, you have no friends, you have no nothing. I'd like to say that's not true. Yes, you do have to put a big focus on your studying and things like that to stay up to date, but there is still room for doing things that you enjoy, doing things that keep you sane. If you didn't have that, then there's gonna be a bigger problem. And so I think that's another thing that keeps me grounded is, like, I'll make plans with my friends. I'll be like, okay, like Friday we're gonna do this, and I'll be like, I'm gonna take the night off from studying that day just so I can hang out with my friends and get that like recharge that I need, basically.
Yeah, and it isn't 24/7. Last night we watched the first 4 episodes of season 5.
All
Stranger
four.
Things.
All
They were
four.
really good. We're really excited for the next part to come out. That was fun.
December 25th.
Yeah, can't wait. And now, if you could give any advice to like the pre-med version of yourself, what would you say now that you're in this position?
I like that question. because there was a version of me a couple of years ago that had no clue what he was doing. So if I could go back and talk to that version of me, I want to tell him that things will work out, because there's a lot of doubt that's created in medicine. The process is very, very daunting. It's very long. And there's no guarantees in the process, you know? And so I wish I could go back and tell myself to breathe, you know, take things as they come along, that things will work out, and not to panic over all the little things, because it's the big picture that's important. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. And what advice can you give to like other pre-med students, other people in undergrad, whether it's GPA, MCAT, getting ready for the MCAT, or just application advice in general?
I think one of the most important things, in my opinion, is to remember that you do belong here, that you are made for this. A lot of things in this process are made to test your devotion to medicine. They're made to test whether you really want this career or not. And I think one of the most important things that I would want to tell people is that on times that you feel like it's not made for you or that you don't belong, keep pushing through. It's worth it. And in terms of applications and GPA and MCAT, all of those things are important for your application, yes. And I don't want to say that one thing is more important than the other. Everything is, you know, looked at in like in a big picture type of thing. But don't get too caught up in the details. Work on other portions of your application. You don't only want your, because I know a lot of people who are like, oh, my GPA is a 4.0 and my MCAT is like this. There are also other portions of your application that you need to work on. If you don't have a good GPA, or if you have a mediocre MCAT score, that's okay. Try working on other portions of your application. Get in some research, get in some volunteering. Personal statements make a big difference, in my opinion. That's the first thing that, you know, admissions committees are going to look at, and that's how they're gauging who you are, on top of your scores and everything, of course. But I feel like it's a big thing that if you have a great personal statement, if you have like great experiences, it's not that they weigh over the other, but it's looked at in the big picture.
Yeah, and we've also spoken about it before that there are students who have a 4.0 GPA, great MCAT score, but even when it gets time to take that interview, they don't get accepted. So
Correct.
what's some advice that you can give to people in that situation?
I think interview prep is something that's very important, in my opinion, because you can look good on paper, and then, you know, if you get into an interview and you're not able to, like, one of the most important things as a doctor is having compassion, having social skills, having the ability to be able to talk to patients, socialize with patients. You know, in healthcare, our job is to get history from the patients and like make sure that we're getting the whole picture. And what medical schools are doing in interviews is that they're making sure that you are capable of being that provider that can provide them with everything that they need. And so I would just say definitely, you know, be compassionate, be a down-to-earth human being. But more importantly, don't like think that, oh, an interview, it's going to be easy. It's going to be like a job interview or something like that. I would definitely say practice. Because my first interview that I had for medical schools, I practiced, but I didn't practice, I think, to the level that I should have. And it kind of showed. But things work out, you know, the way that they do. But I would definitely say that hounding down on practice is one of the biggest things for interviews.
And is there any like crazy interview experience that you've had with a certain medical school?
I can't say the medical school. I have had crazy experiences. I have had one specific crazy experience. And I would say that even when you have a really bad experience, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get an acceptance into the school. If you have a really bad interview, you can have what you think is the worst interview possible. But I feel like sometimes they are testing your patience and testing your, your reactions to things like that. Like I'm not gonna say what happened, but I had a really interesting experience at one school where I was like 100% sure. I walked out of there and I was like, oh my God, like they're gonna ghost me. They're not even gonna give me a rejection letter. And it ended up working out. It was fine. But like in that moment, I was like, oh my God, like there's no way that this happened. Like the fact that this happened means that they didn't like me, and like nothing is gonna happen. And then later on, I found out, I was like, okay, nice. So yeah.
A lot of undergrad students also don't have any way to shadow or any organization to volunteer at. What would you recommend to those people who are trying to find something but just have no one?
I think that's it's a solid question because it's something that I struggled with myself as well. Because everybody wants their applications to be polished. They want everything to be on there, right? And so you want to have volunteering experience, want to have shadowing experience. I think the biggest thing for me was getting out of my comfort zone and just, asking people, hey, can I shadow you? So like, for example, if you're at your primary care office, you're having a checkup or you're there because you're sick, ask your primary care. Be like, hey, would you mind if I shadowed you? I'm a pre-med student. I need some experience. The worst that they say is no. Like there's nothing that you have to lose other than maybe a little bit of a blow to your ego for a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of days, depending on how bad it stings. But I think it's the biggest thing is just getting out of your comfort zone and asking people. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, is because I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to ask this person. Like, I've known my primary care for a couple of years. Do I really want to ask? Like, what if she says no? But the biggest thing is, yeah, what if she says no? If she says no, she says no. And most of the time, even if they are not open to it, like for example, if whoever you ask says no, most of the time they'll give you another option. They'll be like, oh, like I know this person who might be interested in letting you shadow. Like their the network over there is really, really good. And so, in the fact that if they're not able to help you, they typically will know somebody else who's able to help. And in terms of the volunteering perspective, I would definitely just say start volunteering at like most local hospitals have opportunities to volunteer. And when you do that, other opportunities and doors will open from there, because you'll get to know people who are like, oh, I'm volunteering here, or I'm doing this. And you're like, oh, can you help me out with that? It's all just about getting out of your comfort zone, unfortunately. And for me, that was something that I struggled with, but I think it's something that you're gonna have to deal with eventually, especially in this career path and stuff like that. So might as well get ahead of it.
That's beautiful. And now looking ahead, what kind of doctor do you want to become, both in specialty and quality?
In terms of specialty, so far I'm thinking I want to work in emergency medicine. I scribed in the ER for almost a year, and it's not something that's for everyone. I would definitely say that. And so that's why when I worked there, I kind of saw, I was like, okay, I can see myself in this field. And that's another piece of advice. I'm kind of going off tangent here, but that's another piece of advice that I would recommend to people, before going into med school, is making sure, like, if you have the opportunity to see the specialty that you're thinking of, go in, even if it's for a day, go in and be like, okay, like, what does it entail? Because sometimes it might not be what you think it is. That happened to me for another specialty. But in general, make sure that it's something that fits for you. But anyways, back on to the point. For me, leaning towards emergency medicine, Could also go IM, internal medicine. Could change after rotations as well if there's something that I find more of a particular interest in. In terms of quality, I definitely want to have I want to bring in a level of compassion. I want basically, whether I'm working in my own clinic, if I do primary care, IM, or if I'm working in the ER, I want to make sure that the patients that are coming in, they feel that all of their concerns are being listened to and that they're being addressed. There's a lot of factors that play in, especially in emergency med, social economic factors, things like that. I want to make sure that every single portion of that is looked at, and I want to make sure that when the patient leaves the ER or the clinic or wherever it is that I'm working, I want to make sure that they feel seen, they feel heard, and that they feel that everything that they walked in concerned with, that they have a solution for it when they're walking out.
That's amazing. And finally, what's one piece of advice that you'd want to give to your future self, whether it's you in 3 or 4 years after you're done with medical school, starting residency, or just starting rotations? What's one thing that you'd want to say?
I definitely say to myself, just remind myself to keep pushing. We've made it this far, and if we've made it this far, it means we can keep going. And just remind ourselves that we belong here, we have worked hard to get here, and to keep pushing through the process.
That's amazing. All right, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And if anybody would like to contact Bilal personally or just reach out to him for any advice, we're going to have his Instagram or maybe his email linked over here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys.